It's showtime. Okay, we are live on a Sunday. and I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to come in here while I go ahead and announce this across the channels. And this is a good one today. You're going to, there we go. Okay. You're probably going to want to share this one out. You're going to want to let your friends know. You might want to take notes and come back and watch it again. So we're going to talk about food labels today. There's a lot in the world of food labeling, and the FDA keeps trying to make food labels easier for people, and yet I feel like they just keep failing. Hey, Rudy, how are you? Welcome in. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. So food labels are, it is really they were put in place as a way to kind of tell people what's going on. And the problem is that nobody knows how to read a food label. Nobody really even knows how to understand the ingredients that are listed on a food label. And then, you're going to look at, I think food companies utilize the real estate on the front of a package to make it as pretty and deceiving. And they'll put these buzzwords on there that make you think that what that product is actually good for you and healthy for you. And the problem is everybody buys into it. People get duped, I call it. Listen, I've been duped. I still get duped every now and then. And it really makes me mad because, I know what the heck I'm doing. And sometimes I just, take my eyes off the ball thinking that I'm buying something that might be relatively healthy. And turns out that it might have ingredients in it that I'm just like, oh my God, that's not, I wouldn't have bought that if I knew it had those ingredients. But, something just maybe I was in a rush when I was shopping and just didn't think, I thought I knew better. So I want to bring this information to you guys because the thing about food labels and why it's important to you, why I like to get people to pay attention to this is because this is the food you're buying for your family. We're all trying to be healthier. We're all trying to put better food and better nutrients into our bodies. And the problem is when the food or the labels don't live up to what our goals are, we think we're doing good things, but we're just not. And then we wonder, why are we still sick? Why do you still have autoimmune issues? Why do you have joint pain? Why do you have migraine headaches? Why do you have gut issues? There's a multitude of things. Hey, Ken, how are you? Ken says, count me into that group too. Find food and not reading the ingredients fully, for sure. But, I always talk about Ken. Ken has a story about how he would go to the local convenience store and he would eat apples as a snack during work, thinking that that was good. But then he started having some health issues and realized that there was some additive in these apples, which, Ken, I don't think you ever figured out what the additive was, did you? And he just decided it was kind of like the only thing that changed. So he stopped buying them, and then the condition went away. And it's like, wow, so, and we're going to talk about that today too, and how food companies can get away with putting things in our foods. And again, not really sharing with us what is in there, because this is about profits over people. And for you as the consumer, I hope that this information arms you with what you need in order to protect yourself, your health, and your family. If you have any kind of health issues whatsoever, if you have any kind of autoimmune issue, even just something as simple as, people don't give much credence to like eczema or dry skin or, acne, things like that. That's all metabolic dysfunction caused by food, toxic chemicals, toxic overload. And we have to pay attention to these things because we're getting toxins from our food, our water, our environment. And so today's focus is going to be on getting those toxins from food and how can we be more conscious about not getting them. Ken said, no, I did not. But when I went to buy the fruit or something from Myers, I still get a little gun shy over that. Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Rudy says, Paula, how was years 43 to 44? In my age you're talking about, they were amazing. I would love to be 43 forever. although I'm only 29, so I'm not quite there yet. No, I feel great. I feel great. Life is good. So, and it's just living living with healthy principles. So, okay. So let's go ahead and let's get started on these ideas. So first of all, the food label industry, it does keep changing. They try to make things bigger, they'll make something bigger on the label, thinking that you're gonna know what that means, but no, you're not. And you know what? I should go grab a label. But they're gonna make things bigger because they're like, oh, well, if you can't see it and we want this to pop out, or like total fat, they'll pop that out, or total calories, they made that bigger over the years. And just to give you an idea of the deception, when I started really paying attention, well, first of all, my mom taught me to read labels when I was a little girl because my brother he was hyperactive. And so my mom, when I was like 8, 9, she said, let's get rid of all the sugar cereals, no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or colors. And I still live by those principles today. No sodium nitrate, BHA, BHT, those are all preservatives. We couldn't buy anything that had those things in it. That means cured meats. Like we didn't have lunch meat. We didn't, we used to have fried bologna sandwiches all the time. And that's really great when you're growing up poor. But she stopped buying bologna. Like she stopped buying all of that stuff. And we just had real food that didn't have those ingredients in it. So it's, these are principles that I've been taught as a little girl. And there's some level of corruption that comes through the food industry that tries to fight those things because they don't want you to stop buying cured meat. They want you to keep buying it because if they had to remove the nitrates out of it, they wouldn't be able to sell as much. So it becomes this, it becomes a government-driven profit bus that you need to pay attention to. Hey, Magic Acres, nice to see you. They hide the ingredient names with the more scientific jargon to make you think it's something they're not. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Hey, Chairman, nice to see you. Welcome in. By the way, Magic, I still have not gotten that email. I don't know if you, I don't know if it got to the wrong email again, but just wanted to let you know I'm not ignoring you. And I looked for it again today. I can't find it. Anywho. So, all right, so let me go over to my show notes here. And so the food industry, in case you guys aren't aware, which I'm sure you are, is, try to get this over here. They have really great marketing. And, they have billions and billions of dollars to put behind marketing, to put behind selling their products. And that's really all it is let's sell the products any way we can in order to make a profit. I'm trying to move my screen around here. All right. So I'm going to talk about some of the misleading claims and just some of these basic ones. This is when I first came on, I said, you might want to take notes. You might want to bookmark this. Also, please make sure if you are here watching and you're not subscribed, please subscribe and go ahead and give it a thumbs up and share this out. I appreciate it. But because you might want to take notes on this. So some of the things, so these are red flags. I'm going to go through red flags on the food label. I'm not even going to teach you how to read the food label because that's complex. We can come back at another time. But the purpose behind what I'm going to do tonight is to give you an idea of what to look for so you don't have to learn a complicated food label and actually do math, because that's what the food label requires. Really, if you really want to learn that food label, you have to be able to do math. It's a whole nother video. So we're going to talk about some things that you can look at just from the outset. So first things first, never take a food label at face value. So that means when you're looking at a package from the front, well, let me back up a minute. If you're reading food labels and you are so confused and you don't know what to do, then you're eating too much from a box or a bag or a bottle or a package. You need to put it down, forget about it, and just go buy fresh food, period. So I always preface this. I have a love-hate for teaching food labeling because you shouldn't be spending all of your time in the store reading a food label. Most of the groceries that I buy don't have a label. It's fruits, vegetables, it's produce, it's, fresh meats and fish. Rarely do I buy anything that has a food label. So I want you to think about that. If you're spending time in the store reading labels, then get rid of it. My mom used to make us read the labels if we went down an aisle, which, that means if you stay to the perimeters, you're going to be around all the fresh fruits and vegetables and the produce. If you go up and down the aisles, you're with the boxes and the packaged foods. So my mom, if we found ourselves in those in the aisles, she would make us read the labels, and we would have to learn how to pronounce maltodextrin and monosodium glutamate and all these other things. And so she would say, "Does it sound like food?" "Nope." "Okay, then put it back. We can't buy it." That was her thing. So I'm super grateful to her for teaching me these principles because it taught me a lot. And like I say, I grew up like this. I was very fortunate that I had a mother who taught me how to do this, which then laid the groundwork for me to teach you. And a lot of people don't learn these things until they become adults, until they're like, oh gosh, I need to make a change. I was raised a certain way and I was raised without healthy habits. I need to learn. So a lot of adults are just learning for the first time what it means to be healthy. And so that's why we're here. It's just making things as easy as possible for you. So the biggest red flags are, and this is what you're going to look at. You're going to look at if you see low fat, fat-free, or light. Those are red flags. Why is it a red flag? Because when you see those on the label, that means they did something to it. That means that they extracted something and then they put something else in to make up for the fact that they took it out. Now, I will buy low-fat organic cottage cheese, but I read the label and the label says low-fat milk. So it hasn't been, made with, because a lot of times, if you buy non-fat, they'll take all the fat out and then they'll add in like gums and stabilizers to make it creamy. So they put additives back in to make it creamy. Well, I don't want that. So I'm okay with the low-fat milk and then enzymes. Like it's pretty simple, but you have to read the label because not all of them are clean like that. So when they start removing things, they add things back in. So your light bulb should automatically go off if it's low fat, fat free, or light. Cheeses are an example. People love cheese and then they'll buy fat free cheese. Well, what's the point? Like, there's no point in a fat free cheese. Eat the friggin' cheese. Like the good stuff has all been taken out and then they add stuff back into it. So also there's a lot of cheeses like Cracker Barrel cheese, and then there's the Kraft cheese that's like, it's the brick in the packaging, and there's additives in there. Like, go and look at those labels. They add stuff in there. Shredded cheeses are like that. There's cellulose added in there. Hey, Mad Chick Acres, drop your email. Oh yeah, try it from your work email later. Perfect. And then I was gonna say I'll write your email address down, but yeah. Okay. Or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as well, if you can find me over there. So those are things to avoid as well, like packaged shredded cheeses. So we want to, we just want to avoid anything like that. So buy a good full fat cheese. Don't try to mess with things that are natural like that. I had somebody tell me, they were like, oh, I use fat-free half and half. Like, that makes no sense. Half and half is half cream, half milk. Now, what's fat-free half and half? It's just fat-free milk. Like what like that so this marketing that they're trying to, you want half and half, but you want the fat-free, which means you're not really getting half and half. And then they put gums and stabilizers in it to give you that mouthfeel, to give you that creamy feel. Just drink the freaking cream. Like that's like it's that simple. So Chairman says, I love Gouda and Munster. Absolutely love it. I bought an aged Gouda yesterday that was to die for. Like, just don't mess. It's just certain things. Don't mess with it. The second thing is natural or all natural. There's no regulations around these terms. I mean, if you think about it, if let's say you buy a cracker and it says all natural. Well, God, I would hope so. Like what wouldn't be natural in it? But they use these words to trigger in your brain that you are healthier. So, yes, Michigan Hay, here's to Sally. Cheers to my mom. Absolutely. She was a good teacher. So natural and all natural, it means nothing. It's just to try to get you to think that their product is better than something else. So, and it's not. It has no meaning. Flip it over and see what's on the back. Would you buy it if it said not natural? You're assuming it's natural because you're going to eat it. I would hope that it's natural. So, but yeah, again, flip it over, look at the ingredient label. The next red flag would be no added sugar or sugar-free. These are big ones because this is how they hide artificial sweeteners. And artificial sweeteners, I'm going to talk a little bit about like the actual chemical ones. So there's aspartame, sucralose, acyl sulfame K is another one. And then you get into, now those are bad enough. So what any of these do. So whether it's I call it a non-nutritive sweetener. So we'll call it artificial sweeteners for now, because that'll include sugar alcohols. That'll include things like stevia, monk fruit, allulose is another one. Those are naturally derived versus chemically derived. But they all have this impact on your brain, that your brain thinks it's getting something sweet. And when it doesn't, then it can actually then trigger you to go have a craving. So a lot of people who get carbohydrate cravings, who have sugar cravings, they tend to be leaning heavily, like they'll drink sugar-free or I call them fashion waters. So like Propel, or they'll buy they think you'll have vitamin water, right? Vitamin water is a really good one. Vitamin water used to just be, I think they just used cane sugar. And then they started using stevia. Then Costco got a hold of it and private labeled it under the Costco brand. And they actually use aspartame. So people were thinking that they were getting vitamin water in the Kirkland form, because you always think, oh, Kirkland's high quality. And unless you read that label, Kirkland duped you. Kirkland freaking duped you. So your either cane sugar or your stevia got flipped over to artificial sweeteners, to aspartame. So aspartame, sucralose is Splenda. Splenda. Splenda actually competes for your thyroid. So it looks like thyroid hormone. It actually competes for iodine, for the thyroid. So it looks like the same key that iodine looks like, and it goes into the keyhole because it's a receptor. So that's how your hormones work. And it's a receptor. It goes into that keyhole and it turns nothing on and it turns nothing off, and it takes up space. So now your iodine can't bind like it needs to for the thyroid function. So you lose thyroid function when you have sucralose. I see people buying it by a gigantic bag at Costco, and I'm just like, oh my God, I want to go just shake them and say, please put it back. The other thing is sugar alcohols. So again, we're talking about no sugar added and sugar-free products. Sugar alcohols are things like xylitol, maltitol. There's another, erythritol is the other one. And sugar alcohols are notorious for disrupting gut function. So you could eat let's say a bar or drink something with maltitol is actually really popular in like protein powders and bars, like diet food. It's popular in the, like the weightlifting world because they'll be in the, those pre-mixed protein drinks that are just horrible. I probably could do a whole show on that. So maltitol, xylitol, erythritol disrupts gut function, disrupts the microbiome, causes extreme bloating, like painful doubled over bloating. And so if you're somebody who experiences that, you might want to think about, are you having bars? Are you having some of these drinks that might have some of these artificial sweeteners in them? If you look for things that are sweetened with like fruit juice, I just recommend you just drink water. But if you have to have something that has, make sure it's low in sugar, make sure it's, if it's just fruit juice sweetened, that's fine. But then sometimes like at the grocery store, they'll have those, I think the brand is, I want to say it's Adwala, and they have those juices, those like pressed juices, and they look super healthy from the outset. And if you look at the label, it's like it's bananas and grapes and apples and pineapple. And then they might add a couple of, like spirulina or something like that in there. And it's like 4 servings in an 8-ounce container. I mean, there could be 1,000 calories in that one bottle. And are you really just going to drink a quarter of it? I don't think so. So be super mindful about drinking your calories. And so when you're seeing no added sugar or sugar-free, you'll see that a lot in the drinks, but you'll see it a lot in the foods too. So you definitely want to, as soon as you see that, that should be like ding, 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 ding. I will tell you though too, that if you see something that's like carb, let's see if it's on, I don't think it's on my list. Low carb. Yeah, low carb. Okay, so let's add low carb to this. Actually, we'll go to number 4, which is low calorie or diet. And this is where you'll also see like low carb, and that's ding, 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 ding. And that could be, that could tie into number 3, where it's artificial sweeteners. I was gonna say sweeteners, flavors, colors, because that's what I always say. So artificial sweeteners or the sugar alcohols or like stevia, Splenda, monk fruit. I have a friend of mine who was having some issues with diverticulitis, which is an inflammation of the diverticulum, which is the little pouches in the digestive tract. And turned out what was irritating it, she was eating these protein bars that were sweetened with allulose, which again is from a natural source. And she knows better. She's a healthcare practitioner. So, but she was like, she didn't think anything about it. So again, even the best of us can get duped. So she stopped eating those, and it actually helped her situation a lot. So low carb, diet, low cal, no sugar, sugar-free, those are all boom. And you should immediately be thinking, what are they trying to sell me here? If it's low calorie, if it's diet, they're putting artificial fillers, they're putting chemicals in it to replace the fat, to replace the sugars. And, you really want to be focusing on like nutrient dense food, because low cal, no sugar added diet foods are what I call they're nutrient poor. So they're calorically rich and nutrient poor. And we want to be focusing on nutrient dense. And usually nutrient dense is like calorically poor. I mean, if you think about like broccoli, super nutrient dense, not a lot of calories in it. So that's really what you're looking for. Chairman says, I always add in my hot tea unfiltered, unpasteurized honey. Also add a halo orange that I juice myself and add it to the tea. That sounds yummy. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Right. And we sweeten our things with honey. We use maple syrup, but it's minimal, crushed whole garlic in oh my God, that is going to clear your sinuses. That's a immune boost if I've ever heard one. Nice job. Um, so number 5. Okay, this is another good one. High protein or protein packed. So, and these are all kind of related. You might see all of these listed on a package. So when something says high protein, my spidey senses go off, and I always think, uh, what did they take out and put into it to make it high protein? So if something's high, if it says high protein, it probably has artificial sweeteners in it so that they could lower the carbohydrates. And so that's where your low calorie, low carb diet foods come in. And so it'll say like high protein, low carb. Ding, 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 ding. That should be a trigger for you. And so usually that means that that's something highly processed. You'll see high protein a lot in protein supplements, protein shakes, and sometimes those are super simple. Like they're just revealing themselves right on the front label. At the bottom, it'll say artificially flavored. If it says artificial flavors on there, like what if you're getting a protein powder for your good health, why would you have something that has artificial flavors in it? Like just put it back. So, number 6, whole grain or made from whole grains. Now, sounds good on the outset. We're like, oh yeah, whole grains. But what they can do is they can actually blend them. So like made from whole grains is a big one. Even if you look at like Cheerios, it'll say made from whole oats or whole grain. I don't know. Cheerios is such a deceptive, has such deceptive claims on there. It says heart healthy, because also way back in the day, I think it was like the late 80s, early 90s, when oats came on the scene, and oats were supposed to have been shown to lower the risk of cardiovascular disease. So every box of Cheerios now has a heart on it, and it says heart healthy. And the FDA lets them make that claim, because I don't know what about Cheerios is heart healthy, other than the fact that a study showed that, and I think it was actually, what was it? It was Oat Bran, I think, had its moment for a while back in the early 90s, showing that it was heart healthy as well. And so all these cereals started to come up, and Cheerios still makes that claim. So yeah, you got to watch it. So if it's 100% whole grain, it's got to say that. And if you're in, but again, this is like, think about it. If it's a cereal and it says made with whole grains, you're probably better just buying the actual grain itself. Like if you're going to have oats, like just buy the oats and make it yourself. Like don't buy a refined cereal that has that blended in there. Okay, gluten-free. This is a good one. So what does it mean to be gluten-free? Now, taking into account that there are people with celiac, there's also, we have non-celiac gluten intolerance. And oftentimes the mainstream medical will not give that any credence, because they're like, well, it's not celiac. Or if I'll have a patient and they'll say, well, I was tested for celiac. And I'm like, well, I don't, there's more people who have non-celiac gluten intolerance than have celiac. And the treatment is all the same. Like it does have to be gluten-free. And there's a lot of cross-contamination with gluten-free. But then the problem with gluten-free is that a lot of gluten-free, so people will be like, oh, I gave up gluten and it didn't work. I still feel sick. But then what they did is then they went to the gluten-free aisle and they bought all the gluten-free stuff that's loaded with inflammatory seed oils and additives. Like basically you just like swapped your gluten-free highly processed diet, or I'm sorry, your gluten-laden highly processed diet with a gluten-free highly processed diet. So gluten-free, we have to think about like, what are we really trying to do? And the problem with, people want to make gluten-free cookies and gluten-free bread, and all that stuff is it should be limited to for everybody. So if you're going to have a cookie, like that should be few and far between. But I know people who are like, oh yeah, they want to make gluten-free stuff. Like every weekend they're trying to make gluten-free cookies and gluten-free brownies and gluten-free. And it's like, it's still sugar. It's still processed food. So um, the other problem with that is the gluten-free flours, rice flour, potato starch, potato flour, tapioca starch. It's these are very bad for your blood sugar. So they'll spike blood sugar. So now what you've done is you've taken, let's say, a brownie, and now you've added in gluten-free grains to make the brownie. So now it's still, you still have sugar, you still have something that you shouldn't be eating, and you've put grains in it that are even more inflammatory to your digestive system and spike your blood sugar. So it doesn't make any sense to just, try to go this whole gluten-free route that is just going to be even more inflammatory to your body. You really just need to start thinking about, how can I reduce sugars? How can I reduce grains? How can I just eat whole foods? So vegetables and high quality protein. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But you got to get away from the whole gluten-free thing where you're trying to look for products that are gluten-free, because that's just more processed food. And then number 8, before we go on to the next section, and then I'll come back and I will answer your questions. So fortified with vitamins and minerals. When you see the word fortified, what that means is that product has been stripped of all its nutrients, and then they put synthetic vitamins back into it. So in order to process whatever it is, like cereals are fortified. So they strip it of everything. So now if you think about it, it's stripped of everything, the naturally occurring vitamins and minerals. And then they add back synthetic ones. And it's impossible to add them back in the same ratios that they came from naturally. So, and they just add a few, they don't add everything back in there. So you really want to avoid anything that's fortified. If you see the word fortified, it's highly processed, and you want to just say, okay, what can I do? Fruits, vegetables, try to think about getting more of your nutrients from actual food, instead of trying to, be duped by a product that says fortified, because it doesn't mean added to and above. It means, no, we stripped it down and then we just added some back in. So, all right. So next up is the generally recognized as safe list. But before I do that, let me come on over here. And because Chairman brings up a good point. So he says, I use the garlic for the allicin. So allicin is a compound in garlic that is shown to be very highly effective for gut issues, for immune function. So yeah, that's great. And you can buy allicin, you can purchase it in highly concentrated form. And sometimes I will put my patients on allicin, and then also tell them to eat raw garlic. It's one of the best things you can do. I love the white chocolate macadamia nut cookies from Subway. Chairman, I had a patient that used to bring me those cookies. Literally, they're amazing. I will not disagree with you on that. And he would bring me like a couple a week. And I would eat like one every couple months. I would then, I kept them in the freezer. And then I would take one out and I'd put it in the microwave if I had a sweet tooth going, and I would eat one. But then when I moved my office, I was in one location for like 19 years. And I moved my office, and back in 2020, and I cleaned out the refrigerator to move the fridge, and underneath some ice packs was like a stack of the Subway cookies. I had no idea how long they'd been there. So, but those would be my favorite too. So I'm so with you on that one. And thank you, Ken. I appreciate you being here. And thanks so much for that comment. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to move into the generally recognized as safe. Have you guys heard this before? I've talked about this. It's been a while. I think I did a couple of videos on this last year. If you've heard of the generally recognized as safe list, give me a comment while I take a drink of water. Chairman says, yeah, I always do the same thing. Freeze my peanut butter chocolate candy bars. My favorite candy bar is Reese's Fast Break. And listen, if you have, like my mom, when I was growing up, as much as she taught us these principles, she loved Milky Way. And she would buy a bag of the baby Milky Ways and she'd keep them in the freezer. And we were not allowed to touch those. Like that was hers. And it would take her months to go through it. But I get it. Like as kids, we would have blown through those in a minute. And when she had a sweet tooth and wanted something sweet, she wanted it and it needed to be there. So I totally get it. But yeah, that was my mom's thing. So yeah, and you know, I'm bringing this stuff up to you just to get you to understand that there's so many other things that we can be paying attention to and eliminate. And if you want to go have a white chocolate macadamia nut cookie from Subway every once in a blue moon, just make sure that that's like, you're not doing something. Because my mom used to say, well, we don't do it every day. And I'm like, Mom, we could do something every day that we don't do every day. And she would laugh. So yeah. Okay, so the generally recognized as safe list. And I will tell you guys something. So I'm actually looking for a new computer. Once I get a new computer, I will have enough bandwidth on my computer to be able to share my screen. So if I try to share my screen with you right now, it's like the lights are dimming, like it's crazy. This poor computer is just running super slow. So I know it'd probably be a little more effective if you could see my screen, but bear with me, I promise. And if you ever want notes from the podcast, I try to load up the show notes below with a lot of the information that I talk about. So if you ever want show notes, then please just reach out to me and I'm happy to share them with you. And then, like I say, when I get a new computer, I'll be able to share my screen and you'll be able to take notes right alongside. Okay, so the generally recognized as safe list. This is the FDA gave a designation to food additives that don't require rigorous safety testing. And just because they put it on this generally recognized as safe list doesn't mean that it's truly safe. Because what they did was they decided that there were too many additives to oversee. And so they basically put the chickens, the fox in charge of the hen house, and they told the companies, you know what, we have this list and we're gonna call, we think they're safe. And so as long as, if you're gonna use them, just send us a certificate that you think they're safe, and then we're cool. It's the biggest scam in our American foods as well. I don't know if it's the biggest. It's one of the biggest scams in the American food system, because these artificial dyes that they've removed from the market because they cause cancer, that were shown to cause cancer 30 years ago, which red dye, I think is it red dye 40 that's finally being removed? I don't know. It's one of the red dyes, but not all the red dyes have been removed. You think all the dyes are safe? I mean, but they're on the generally recognized as safe list. But then and then every once in a while they'll pull something. Now, one of the biggest ingredients on we're just going to call it the grass list. So first of all, what happens with these ingredients is they cause inflammation. They can cause nerve pain. We're going to talk about monosodium glutamate is the first one on my list. A known disruptor of the nervous system. It's actually neurotoxic. Causes migraine headaches, it causes joint pain, it causes inflammation, it causes gut disruption, it causes hormone disruption. Many of these cause a massive disruption in people's hormones. So, especially if you're, you think about your kids going through puberty, you've got women, who want to get pregnant, who are having difficulty getting pregnant, and then even the men, what's the viability of your sperm if you're having all of this stuff? And then as women go through perimenopause and menopause, and then men start to have issues as well, like 40% of men under 40 have erectile dysfunction. So there's so many toxic ingredients in our world that are causing hormone disruption. And so we have to pay attention to this. So if we go through the generally recognized as safe, so monosodium glutamate, if you are as old as I am, you go into the Wayback Machine back in, I think this was probably the 80s when um, MSG was revealed in Chinese food. That they were using it in Chinese restaurants, and that you either, like people stopped going to Chinese restaurants, or if you went into the Chinese restaurant, you would say, "Oh, no MSG." And what that meant was they wouldn't add MSG, but everything they use, the fish sauce, the oyster sauce, all their special sauces have MSG in them. They just don't add MSG. So, and then in the 80s, it came out with Accent. Do you guys remember Accent? That was a flavor enhancer. Those white crystals. I had a bottle of it. I used it through the 80s. I didn't know any better. And it was a flavor enhancer, and everybody used Accent. We didn't really know it was MSG, but then you'd still go to the Chinese restaurant and you'd still say, "No MSG, please." And then you make something the next day and put your Accent in it, not realizing that you were doing the same thing. Like, it was just crazy. And the problem with MSG is that it is neurotoxic. So it is toxic and inflammatory to the nerves, which is why so many people get migraine headaches from it. But MSG lives under a multitude of names. So without going too deep into that, because I want to get through the rest of this list, you can just Google MSG and all the names that it lives under. But bouillon, this is where your bouillon comes in. There's MSG in your sauce, like your taco packets, right? So if you're gonna make tacos, like just take your singular spices and make it. You want to avoid anything in packets like that. You want to avoid like salad dressings, because they're all going to have MSG in it. I would say just like lemon juice, olive oil, and garlic, salt, pepper, maybe an herb. Mix it up into a mason jar, and you've got the best salad dressing you'll ever have. You don't need to buy salad dressing in a bottle. In fact, I don't think I've ever had salad dressing from a bottle that's ever tasted good. Like, I find them gross. Like, so, and if you like them, I would challenge you to make your own salad dressing. So you're avoiding the MSG in there. And of course, if you buy salad dressings in a packet and then it says, "Oh, add olive oil and vinegar," guaranteed it's got MSG in it. So you want to start to, you can look at that label. It may not say MSG. It might have another name in there, but you're going to want to start paying attention to your packets, your bottles, because it probably has MSG in it. Sodium nitrate, sodium nitrite. I saw a really interesting documentary last night on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it. It was called, I'm going to look it up real quick while we're on here. But it talked about how back in I think this was back in the 80s, let's see. Oh, wait, I'm on YouTube. Back in the 80s, there were studies that came out that showed that nitrates caused cancer. And the meat industry, the processed meat industry, was like, whoa, 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 we can't have that. And then it turned out that they ended up, was that on, no, actually, I think it was it on YouTube? Where did I see that? I think it was on YouTube, actually. It was on YouTube. So then it turned out that the whole thing ended up getting squashed because it was, industry, corrupt food industry. Hidden work, dangerous additives. And this came out a year ago. Corrupt food industry, hidden work, dangerous additives. So what they did was these studies, the meat industry went after this one woman who had done a lot of the studies, and they tried to discredit her and then bury the studies. And then, because it would have just cost way too much. So it's these reporters from France who go around and they're trying to uncover why did you not pay attention to these studies that show that nitrates cause cancer? And they get kicked out of different offices. Like, people don't want to talk to them. It's really incredible. And I think, gosh, my mom was like, no, if it has nitrates in it, like, we rarely had bacon. And how sad is that? But she knew, like, and at the time they didn't have uncured bacon, right? Everything had these toxic ingredients in them. So all processed meats are going to have nitrates in them. You can buy nitrate-free things now, but there's still, like, even lunch meats are still pretty highly processed. So, and they are linked to cancer, but then the meat industry tried to discredit that. So who do I trust? Yeah, I trust my mom. And then we have BHA and BHT. These were two other preservatives that my mom was like, nope, we can't, they cause cancer. We can't eat that. And they're hormone disruptors. So here's my brother who's hyperactive. And she's like, nope, we can't have any of that. No food dyes is the next one. And it's linked to hyperactivity, allergies, and behavioral issues. And she got all of this information. And then the next one is artificial sweeteners, which we talked about up top. But she got all this information from Dr. Feingold. And again, Dr. Feingold, he's been around since he's no longer alive, but there's like the Feingold Society now. And this is how I don't know how she found him or his teachings back in the 80s, but I feel like he's been around since like the 50s, maybe the 60s. And he has a whole diet plan. And he talks about hyperactivity in kids and how all of these things that we're talking about that are on the generally recognized as safe list, we need to avoid them if we want to protect our kids' brains and nervous systems. And so again, this was information that my mom put into play way back in the day. And these ingredients are still in our food. So if you or yourself have, you or your kids have any issues, brain issues, ADD, ADHD, autism, dementia, Parkinson's, migraine headaches, brain fog, you can't sleep, anything having to do with you neurologically, this could actually be causing it if you're having things that have these ingredients in them. So the other one is carrageenan, which is a thickener, and that has also been shown to cause gut inflammation as well. So this is just a very abbreviated list of the generally recognized as safe, but these are like my top ones. And so I would encourage you to go look up the GRAS list. And I mean, it's exhaustive, really. It's amazing what they allow. And, just looking at our cereals and how Food Babe, if you're following her, she's trying to get Kellogg's, like she had a big crusade over at Kellogg's to try to get them to remove the artificial dyes from their cereals because they don't use them in Europe. And her argument is, you already have the formula to make cereal without food dye. So why can't you just not do it? And they still haven't done it. They still haven't agreed to it. And so she's trying to crusade to get that changed. Now, that's great. But in my opinion, you're still talking about sugar cereals. You're still talking about, these inflammatory grains, genetically modified. There's still so much work to be done. And so I just recommend, you just don't eat the stuff. Like, that's how you vote with your dollar, and you just don't buy the stuff that has these ingredients in it. So, okay. So let me come back over to our questions. And Chairman says, did you know that wine can have up to 300 additives and they don't even have to put that on the bottle? Yes. And that is frightening. I usually buy my wine from Scout and Cellar, and they, all of their wines are like 50 and below. So still additives, but also glyphosate free. A lot of wines will have glyphosate, which is Roundup. A lot of our food system has Roundup in it. And they don't have to tell you it has Roundup in it. So you'll want to, like that. And that's why too, when I recommend Metagenics, one of the reasons that I use Metagenics products is because they test for glyphosate and they test for heavy metals. And a lot of companies will not test for that. So you're still, if you're buying supplements from places that don't test for those things, you could still be getting some pretty nasty things inside those products. Yeah, red dye, yellow dye in children's cereals. It's and it's like um, I saw a video about McDonald's French fries. So now there's this push to have these fast food places cook their fries in tallow and lard again. Okay, that's great. Except McDonald's uses a specific kind of potato that apparently they have to spray so heavily for a particular like an aphid, like some kind of bug, and they have to use this really highly toxic chemical to spray for these bugs. And apparently they spray, and then the farmers can't go out to the fields for like 5 days because they have to let it settle because it's so toxic. Then after they pick the potatoes, they go into like the greenhouses, and they have to sit there for I forget how many days so that the chemicals can off gas. And they can't go into these greenhouses while the potatoes are in there because they're so they're completely inedible. Like they're literally poisonous until all these toxic chemicals off gas from them. Then and only then can they take them and sell them to McDonald's. So even if they did cook them in lard, it's still like this horrific vegetable that they've taken the potato, which is an amazing vegetable, and they've just completely adulterated it. Mad Chick says, I love making my own salad dressings. Too bad my wife likes all her low-fat dressings. You should see my pantry shelves. Oh my goodness. Well, just have her just do vinegar and salt and pepper. Like, she doesn't have to put the oil on it, but just don't buy the stuff, right? Yeah. It's like a yin and yang closet, huh? If it's not natural, it has no business entering the body, which is so true, except for that's where that label, when it says natural, they can still put the grass chemicals in it, and still says natural. They can still make those claims. So as true as that statement is, we just have to be that much more diligent about what we see on the labels, not falling victim to the marketing and the advertising, and making sure that we're only buying things that are completely natural and not what they tell us are natural. Hi, Silly Lily. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. I saw you on Howie's show the other day. Nice to see you over there. Chairman says, there's a Virginia winery. I can't remember the actual name of it, but it's a really good place. Oh, okay. Do they ship? I wonder. I love knowing that stuff actually exists in the US. Silly Lily says, your wife needs to understand that her body needs fat in order to lose weight if that's her goal. Yes, we need some. I will tell you that when you start paying attention to, because I'd put olive oil in my salad and avocados, and I'd have a couple salads a day, and I started tracking my macros on my phone, and I was eating a lot of fat. And my fat, I think I give myself like 35%. It's 40. Yeah, I'm doing like 40% carb, 35% fat, and 30%. I don't know. I do the math somewhere around there. But yeah, when you start to really pay attention, you're like, oh, you can really consume a lot of fat in a short period of time because there's 9 calories per gram of fat. So you can overdo it. I will say that. But again, it's just making sure it's from pure sources is fine. I know silly is heated topic in our house. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. And Chairman says, that's insane. Now I don't want to eat the McDonald's French fry anymore. I know. Yes. Yeah. You should go look that up. It was crazy. I was like, whoa, I cannot believe that they've basically the French fry is a toxic bomb. And it's this particular russet potato that grows really long, so that when they cut them, they want them to stick nicely out of the box. And that's why they chose that potato. So yeah. Let's see. Chairman says, I really love Chick-fil-A fries. I don't eat any of it. Mad Chick says, my sister is the same. She's bought into the low-fat marketing. Yeah. And all the low-fat stuff, Silly Lily, if you go back and watch this, you'll see we talked about low-fat in the beginning of this, and just how, they take all the fat out, and then they put the toxic chemicals in. And people like they put things back in it to give people the mouthfeel of fat. Well, you're better off just eating the fat and then eating less of it. Mad Chick says organic labels at the grocery store just mean the farm was organic, not what they spray on the food to make it shelf stable. Oh yeah, and the irradiation. And so I think there are some regulations around that. But then again, there's like, they can put food grade waxes over it. But then it's like, what ultimately is like, what is food grade? I don't know. I question all of it at this point. McDonald's potatoes have a fungicide sprayed on them too. Yeah, it's probably all of that. I don't know what that spray is that they spray for that aphid, but yeah, it's pretty nasty. So, Silly Lily says, oh, I know, I do my research. Yeah, sounds like your sister needs to do so too. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. So, just to wrap up is that, you can't take the food or the boxes or the bags or the packet or whatever it is. You can't take it at face value. You have to flip that over. And I hope that tonight's live helped you a little bit just to think about if there's a buzzword on the front that should trigger you to know that it is not going to be that there's going to be something deceptive happening on that label. We can talk another time about what things actually mean on that label, how to decipher it. But I think it's better for you to know what you're looking for on the buzzwords, what you're looking for in the ingredients before, like if I teach you how to read a food label, that isn't going to help you as much as understanding where the deception comes from that goes into that food label. So, who cares if you know how to calculate carbohydrates, fats, and proteins if there's chemicals in there and you don't know how to scan for those. And the idea behind tonight's live was just to, be able to give you some cursory information. So think about that. Like check the ingredient label first. Flip that bag over, check the ingredient label. My mom always said, and I don't know if she made this up or not, but she probably got it from somebody way back when. But if you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't eat it. If it doesn't sound like food, you shouldn't put it in your body. And then just making sure you're watching for those buzzwords. Don't buy into the hype. The packaging can look so pretty, and they put like green leaves on it, and they really try to make it look supernatural. And it's just a smoke and mirrors to try to hide their chemicals in there. And again, make bigger profits off of deceiving you. So watching for your hidden sugars. So cane juice, fructose, maltodextrin, dextrose, and again, looking for your hidden sources of MSG. And then watching your serving sizes. I will finish up with this on serving sizes. A big piece of deception on these labels. Many years ago, I believe it was back in the early 90s, and the FDA told cereal companies that they could no longer market sugar cereals to kids on television if the cereal had a certain number of grams of sugar per serving in the cereal. Okay. And so what do you think they did? Do you think they changed their formula and lowered the sugar? And I would like to know, do you think they did that? What they did was they changed the label and they made the serving size small enough so that the grams of sugar fell below what the requirement was. That's it. They didn't have to change their formula. And then they just carried on. And that's how they do it today. And there's another, oh gosh, I have to go back because I just bookmarked it, but there's something else going on with ingredients and I just read about this last week and I bookmarked it and I have to go back. So I probably shouldn't say anything, but I'll shed a little bit of light, but it's something very similar to that, is that the FDA is like, you've got to do X, Y, and Z with your foods. And so instead of doing that, it's looking like they're just going to change the labels to circumvent that. So let's see. Silly Lily says, it's a heated topic at her house. She believes that they wouldn't put a product on the shelf as it isn't good for you. Oh my goodness. That's Thanksgiving dinners have to be really fun there, I'm guessing, huh? um, my local Mennonite farm sprays the fields. When I ask them, they pretend not to know what I'm talking about. I see them with the giant tanks behind the tractors and smell it in the air. It's like when your neighbors spray their lawns. You can smell it coming into the neighborhood, and it's 3 blocks away. I mean, you can't, when they spray stuff in the air, it's all over. Hey, Randy, nice to see you here, my friend. Nothing should be eaten that comes in a box, packed, tin, and have an expiration date. Eat only what is made and grown naturally. Simple rule. I love that. Absolutely. Yep. I was saying that earlier. I started this off by saying, if you find yourself super confused about what those labels mean, as much as I like to teach this, that's when I just say you're eating too many processed foods and you need to put it down and go buy fresh foods and figure out how to make things not from a box, a pack, a tin, or a bottle. That's why I say, like, salad dressing is the easiest thing that you can do on your own. And you don't have to, worry about getting all those chemicals. And I'll just say, like, tacos are another one. I feel like taco seasoning is probably a pretty common processed seasoning that people buy. And I put in, I saute my meat with tons of onions and tons of garlic. And then I put in a jar of my own homemade tomatoes. You could do, crushed tomatoes if you wanted to. I put salt and pepper in it. And I put a little bit of chili powder and some smoked paprika. Like, I don't put a ton in there. And it makes great tacos. Like, you don't need all the garbage. So think about what's the most minimal thing that you can do that you can add and make it flavorful. And I load it up with, like, I'll take peppers and, like, jalapenos, and I'll really, grind them down, put them into, like, finely chop them in my food processor and put them in there. And you just start putting all the foods in there that give it this really great flavor, and you don't need a packet to give you that flavor. So, Mennonite and Hutterite communities are big chemical users. Amish are the ones that are organic. And then, unfortunately, we get overspray. It's like you want to think that organic's truly organic, but then you get all the overspray from that. Magic Acres says, "Oh, I'm a he. I knew that. The name is my farm, named after my parents." Did I say she? I thought, no, I knew you were a guy. Did I? Or did somebody else call you a she? I don't know. So Magic Acres is his name. I love that that's the name of your farm, though. Discussions get really interesting. That's great. Natural assumption. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So maybe Silly Lily called you. Yeah. All right. Magic says, I know I made up the name. Now I need a screaming woman for my channel. Hey, I'll do it. You want me to do it? I'll do it. Love to collaborate on that. I could do that. Michigan Hay says, depends on the Yama or Mennonite. Just because the Amish doesn't mean they're organic, just like all organic and some. Yeah. It's interesting. And that's why, like, I think the closer we can get to our farmers, our food producers, the better off we'll be. The better who's growing your food, the better off we'll be. I keep threatening to get chickens. I've been wanting chickens for 25 years anyway. And I feel like it might be timely. I just have to get somebody to build me a chicken coop. So anyway, and I live in a subdivision. So I'm like, I'll just get chickens until they tell me I can't. So, yeah. But yeah, I think, this really is it's a time to just get close to the people, like find people locally who are growing food and just, go visit their farms, go, learn from them. I have, a woman that I know, like, I get eggs from her. I get my chickens from her. She has honey. Her place is beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, go visit her farm. Like, you will not be disappointed when you go see how she has like a whole bird sanctuary. It's the most beautiful place you'd ever seen. So really, really lovely. Silly Lily says Hutterite communities in our area are big chemical users, but you'll see them at farmers markets claiming it's organically grown. Isn't that crazy? And that's why too, like I think that's a big misconception is people think that just because somebody's at a farmer's market that they're organic. And then there's also people think that just because people are at a farmer's market that they're actual farmers. There's some people that show up, they grow flowers and which is great. Like they have beautiful flowers and plants. And they had this was years ago. I refused to buy anything from them anymore because they had a whole table full of produce. And I said, oh gosh, I said, because I know where the farm is, and it's not big, and it's in like a small community. It's in like in a small like neighborhood. So they have enough for greenhouses to grow their flowers, basically. And I said, wow, I didn't realize you guys grew vegetables too. And he goes, oh, he said, no, we went down to the produce terminal down at Eastern Market and picked this stuff up. It's just here to attract people to our table. And I was like, so basically they're going down to the produce terminal, buying Cal Organic and, buying produce that's been imported into Michigan that wasn't even grown here locally, just so that they could put it on their table to get more people to buy, and then marking it up multiple times where people probably could have gone to Kroger and bought it, or to the other farmers that are there. So I'm like, that is like sheer deception. So definitely make sure you're asking the farmers at the farmers market, where are they from? Do they spray? Like, there is a farmer that I buy most of my things from at the farmers market, and they do like one spray in the spring to help mitigate the rest of the season. So minimally sprayed, is we don't last year there was one other person who was there who is organic. They're new to the market. But as much as I don't really want to buy non-organic, I would prefer to buy something with a very small footprint that's been minimally sprayed. So it's kind of, you have to start picking your battles on that stuff, and, if I go to, if I can buy kale from a farmer that just grew it and picked it and it's been minimally sprayed, is that better than buying a bunch of kale that was grown in California and shipped across the country and it's organic? Like, you have to start thinking about like, where do you draw the line on that, and how much nutrient loss is in that? And then, okay, well, now it's been exposed to exhaust, and did they irradiate it before they put it on the shelf? And there's so much with food production. Mad Chick says, just potted up fruit bushes, blueberries, red raspberry, gold raspberry. Oh, that sounds yummy. That sounds great. I have, I've got a lot of my stuff is in my garage. And then I have a lot of potted fruit plants that I sent to a friend of mine to store in his greenhouse for the winter for me. So I'll be getting that from him probably, maybe in the next month or so. So, hey, Roxana, nice to see you. Who are you talking about? Share whose contact. Let me know. You can also private message me for that information. So Lily says, Randy, I agree. The only thing I buy in a tin are sardines and salmon. Yes. And we buy canned fish too, and always make sure it's packed in olive oil. That's another one, right? Like, you buy it and you go, soybean oil. I didn't even look, right? You get duped. Love me some Brunswick sardines. I went to the factory in Blacks Harbor many years ago. I love a good sardine, and I have to say, like, they vary in flavor. Some are better and some. So Brunswick sardines, huh? Okay. I like the can. I can't find them in spring water, Silly Lily. Where do you find those? I make my own hot sauce. That sounds yummy. I just make my sauce from my tomatoes, and then I just chop a bunch of hot peppers in it. That works for me too. Yeah. And herring fillets, yes. Yes, we do love our canned fish. I know. Yes, olive oil. Yes, I've noticed that. So got to read that label, right? You can't take it at face value for sure. Absolutely. DC, Canada. Okay. Oh, Canada. For the ones in Springwater or the Black's Harbor? I think the ones in Springwater. You can only buy them in Canada, or they're from Canada? I'll have to look for those. We usually go to Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's has a good variety of canned fish, and they're not that expensive. So yeah. Yeah. Springwater. Okay. Got it. I'll look for those at Trader Joe's. Maybe they'll have something there. So, okay, you guys, it is, Brunswick Canning is in Canada. Okay. Does that mean I can't get them here in the US? Probably online, right? But then with the tariffs, like how expensive would they be to have them shipped here? All right, it is 7:12. I still have to edit and get Reset Monday out for tomorrow. So I got about another hour of work ahead of me. But you guys are amazing. I always love being here on a Sunday, and you guys show up and just gives me so much energy. I appreciate all of your input and your questions and your insights. And it's just so great, because if you weren't here, I'd be here all by myself. So, all right, you guys. So I will see you tomorrow for Reset Monday. And then we'll see you. Actually, no, chiropractic is sexy. We're not here this week because Dr. Erica's out of town. So I will see you back here next Sunday. Have a great St. Patty's Day. For those of you, is St. Patty's Day just a U.S. holiday? I'm wondering about that now. Because I know Randy, you're in the Caribbean, right? So yeah. Anyway. If you're in the US and you celebrate St. Patty's Day, have a great St. Patty's Day. So yeah. All right, you guys, thank you so much again for all your time. Love you all so much. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Oh, good. The email went through. Wonderful. I will check it tonight. All right. See you guys later. Have an amazing rest of your night. Bye.